situation where you find that if you look at this,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
but I have said that.
All right, thank you for staying. Now, the dailies on Daybreak. We have a number of papers today to look at. We'll begin with Daily Trust newspaper. The lead story there talks about Ukraine crisis, 12,000 students, other Nigerians trapped. The writer says, we are living in fear, and that's according to students. And then you have parents are worried. Federal government arranges special flights, operation for evacuation. And then you would see also the other stories there at the top. Investigations link police, military personnel to terrorism financing, and that's according to the governor of Kaduna State, Nasir El-Rufai. Fuel price hike looms as marketers kick against 5 million naira shipment charge. And then that's the details of that is on page 22. And then the next one, Electoral Act, 4 ministers, MDA heads to resign over 2023. Now, other stories there. The picture there shows you the inauguration, or rather the commissioning of the 78 doctors' apartments in Maiduguri. That was commissioned by the president. Very interesting sites, really. Other stories there, beside the pictorial, you would see experienced people, academics needed for governance, and that's according to Buhari. NCAA petitioned as airpeace disrespects Emir of Kano. Dead newborn found with madman in Bayelsa. Interesting. You will find details of that on page 20 of Daily Trust newspaper. These are the stories on the front pages this morning.
All right, with that, we'll move on to the Guardian newspaper. And we have the lead story there that talks about Russia-Ukraine war distorts global markets. And some writers here that say more subsidy for petrol as cooking gas may soar. Evacuate stranded Nigerians, reps Ohanese, lawyers tell federal government. Will do so once airports are opened, says federal government. That's in reply to that. And then if you take a look at the pictorial, it's connected to the big story, which you can read on page 4 and 5 on Ashiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And the title of that particular story is The Issue in 2023. Right on the footnote there is a story that says President sign electoral bill as promised. President sign electoral bill as promised, and it's an editorial on page 12. If you go to the top just below the nameplates there, APC stakeholders rage over Adamu's selection as party chairman. We also have 5G license. NCC confirms payment of $273.6 million each by MTN and Mafab. We also have Delta Poly turns back students for not wearing bra and underwear. You can find details of that story on page 29. And a rise of fintechs and flutterwaves phenomenon. These are some of the stories that made it to the front page of the Guardian newspaper.
All right, now let's take a look at the Punch newspaper this morning. On the Punch, the story that leads says Russia-Ukraine war. Stranded Nigerians send SOS to Buhari, demand evacuation. You'd also find the riders that says federal government fails to provide timeline for evacuation as Ukraine shuts airspace. Experts slam government for delay as Nigerians in invaded nation, writes Buhari. All of the details of that is on page 2 of the Punch newspaper, and then the pictorial there shows you, the destruction there in Ukraine by the invasion of Russia. Bring back Nigerians in Ukraine, reps tell president. And then I think that this has taken virtually everyone by surprise. A lot of people were hoping that some diplomatic solution could have been reached,
yes.
By, yesterday. But again, it escalated further, by the, recognizing of the two states in eastern Ukraine by the Russian President Vladimir Putin, and the eventual deployment of more troops on the ground, launching of what he calls the special military operation on the soil of Ukraine, and that saw a whole lot of changes and dynamics to the war. And now we are talking about Nigerians who are stranded. Well, I hope that it doesn't escalate any further, because no one really knows what is going to follow this. You have other stories there at the very bottom of the Punch newspaper, talking about Oyo may produce APC National Secretary Governor's Plan meeting. You have police arrest Ogun housewife who killed husband with hot water. I won't exceed 2023, I swore by the Quran. And that's according to the President Buhari. Other stories at the very top of the Punch newspaper, you'd see 5G rollouts. NCC confirms receipt of $547.2 million license fees from MTN Mafab, and that's on page 25. Other stories, APC discussing zoning, presidency to South, says Erufai. Buhari ignorant of Southwest infrastructural problems, Feni Fere. Naira loses 10.6% of value annually, says IMF. These are some of the stories on the front page of the Punch this morning.
All right, up next is the Nation newspaper. And at the top there, you'd find why patrol scarcity persists by Ipman, and details of that story on page 4. 7 SANs, 16 others apply to be Supreme Court justices. Okay, we also have Tinubu visits Oni, Owaobokun gets blessings. 2 policemen, 5 others killed in multiple attacks on banks. Okay, we also have just below the nameplate, which is the lead story, lawmakers seek power to invite president and governors. And we also have a writer that says Constitution review proposal sets tough conditions for independent candidacy and party registration. We also have dozens, hundreds injured in Russia bombing of Ukraine, and just right below it is a pictorial of, as it's seen and what's happening in Ukraine at the moment. We also have below that pictorial, El-Rufai, resources in terrorists' hands can subvert Nigeria. This is attributed to the Kaduna State Governor. And we also have Al-Makura, 2 others reject APC zoning consensus plans. Party picks zonal Congress panels. And these are some of the stories that we have on the front page of the Nation newspaper.
All right. Now, on the Blueprint newspaper, the stories are not, any different. The lead story says, as Russia-Ukraine crisis worsens, FG prepares special flights to evacuate Nigerians and students. Also, you see that the writer is saying NATO threatens retaliation. Putin warns on interference. Poland, Hungary, Slovakia move to receive fleeing Ukrainians. And then African leaders expressed grave concern. All of that on page 6 of the Blueprint newspaper. Other stories there. We've spent 21 billion naira on logistics to security agencies, and that's according to the governor of Kaduna State, Nasir El-Rufai. Other stories there. Below the nameplate, those who swear by holy books must not abuse public office, and that's according to the president. Riders to that says inaugurates CBN branch, power plant, others in Nasarawa, Lord's Governor Sule's achievement. These are the major stories on the front page of Blueprint this morning. All right, now let's get perspectives on this. We have Nuruddin Abdallah, editor of 21st Century Chronicle, in the studio to give us perspectives to this. Thank you for joining us on Daybreak.
Thank you.
All right, now, well, the story about, Nigerians stranded in Ukraine, just as the crisis between Russia and Ukraine worsens. Does this come to you as a surprise?
Yeah, I think the crisis, the level it reached yesterday, that's on 24th February, took so many actors by surprise. Even the NATO, the United States, not even Nigeria, they didn't think that the tanks would be rolled over eastern Ukraine yesterday. For Nigerians living there, they are not any different. Even the NATO, all other Western powers never thought that President Vladimir Putin would take that drastic decision. The one, but he thought on Monday. But from Monday, I think when he did that press conference and he signed executive orders recognizing the rebel-held regions, we know that something is in the offing. By and large, for observers of the crisis between Russia and Ukraine, you don't need a clairvoyant to tell you that Russia under Putin will leave no stone unturned to protect his country by doing everything under the sun to make sure that Ukraine doesn't join NATO.
All right, now, I mean, what Putin is saying, that this is an attack, it's a special military operation that is meant to mainly protect Russians who are in the Donbas region. But, we are already seeing attacks on military formations even as far as the capital in Kiev. And so the implication of this, when you talk about, evacuating Nigerians, from what we're hearing is that some of the the airports, it's not in operation. So how do you evacuate, students in that sense?
Evacuating the 12,000 students and other Nigerians trapped in Ukraine is not a possibility, at least for the time being. If you read in the newspapers, some Ukrainians are moving through the land border to Slovakia and other neighboring countries. But our students and other citizens have to be flown back to Nigeria with missiles falling from the sky, from what we see, with aircrafts. Do that. And the missiles are coming from multiple directions, from Russia itself, from Ukrainians, and from the rebels. I remember that flight to, I can't remember. You remember that Malaysian flight? Mm-hmm. I think what we should do is not to risk the lives of these 12,000 Nigerians there by putting them in one plane. That one missile will destroy, and nothing will happen. We are just small fish in that Game of Thrones, you understand? So maybe our diplomat there should have envisaged this, because there is no way that the Putin we know, will allow Ukraine to join NATO. That's an impossibility as far as it's concerned. So, and if the authorities in Ukraine insist in doing that, then certainly there will be war.
But a lot of analysts and and watchers, even diplomats, at very high level, says, look, this is a violation on an independent nation. It's their country, it's their decision to decide, whatever organization they want to join. And so why is Putin so hell-bent on, stopping Ukraine from joining NATO, even if that will not deviate us from the main issue?
Yeah, Putin is not directly stopping Ukraine from joining NATO. The narrative from Kremlin is this. Donbass, like you said, is populated by ethnic Russians. And separatists are already holding on to 2 republics in court. What Russia is presently doing, they recognize those republics as independent, one. And these republics, who are now independent in the last couple of days, have invited Russia to come and maintain peace in eastern Ukraine. And that's what Russia is doing now. So all these missiles and whatever they say, maybe from the separatists.
Yes, because
that's the official narrative from Moscow.
The president said he's trying to denazify, and you know, he said that he's intervening as an act of self-defense, and it's not like they actually wanted to go into Russia to, you know, occupy Ukraine or anything.
Yes, if you look at the history, after the fall of the Berlin Wall, America in particular, you know, have a strong alliance with the countries in the Eastern Bloc. The USSR, a strong power at that time, collapsed. Minus Belarus, almost the US, when I say US, NATO, they are in Poland, Bulgaria, and this other country. And their warheads are already there. So now, Putin and all other Moscow politicians believe that the US now are here to complete the destruction of Russia. They want to achieve what they could not in the 1991 when USSR collapsed, and they will not allow it. So that is as simple as that. And another thing is, they say that even on the eve of the collapse of the USSR, there was an agreement that Ukraine in particular will not join NATO, because joining NATO will bring, joining NATO in Ukraine will bring NATO into the doorsteps of Russia. Targeting Moscow
and that's a threat in the neighborhood,
of
isn't it?
Of course, exactly.
Now, what are the best options, you know, for Nigerians in Ukraine, and what are the best alternatives for our diplomats now? Some are saying maybe we should, you know, get into talks with nearby countries, maybe Poland and some other neighboring countries, to see how we can move Nigerians to safer locations in those places. Is that a possibility?
Yes, but we can only do that if we have to monitor the situation. I don't think the tension will escalate for more days. I think there must be diplomatic
solution. We're already seeing NATO threatening to, you know, intervene in that, you know, from one of the stories here.
The issue is NATO can only supply weapons to Ukraine. There won't be direct intervention. Yeah, Article 5, the Washington DC of NATO said that an attack into any member nation of the NATO is an attack on the whole.
Or it's Ukraine, allies, not just member, but even allies of NATO. And in this context, it looks like Ukraine is an ally already of NATO.
Do you know the beauty of all this is Russia is a nuclear power. We don't need to be told of that. So that international politics, that principle of mutual assured destruction is there. Nobody will joke with it. Yes, President Biden is saying that he won't get into talks with Putin. That's just for the cameras. These nations must talk to Putin.
Okay, now this conflict has actually, you know, seen the surge of oil prices. You know, in 7 years, it's the first time that oil prices have actually, you know, surged and gone up in Russia.
Not in Russia per se, in Europe.
In Europe, the whole of Europe.
The whole world. And, you know, it was in 2014, I remember. 2014, you remember what happened with the annexation of Crimea? remember, another ethnic Russian territory. Not only oil, the economic dynamics will force these superpowers to the negotiating table. Yes. One of it is the oil, the gas.
I mean, but some of these sanctions have been in place already, and losses have been incurred on both sides, both on part of Russia and the EU.
Yes, but what we're saying now is this. For instance, if Russia decides to cut more than 40% of the gas supplies to EU, at this material time, where can they get replacement from? Or the quota of the oil they get from Russia. That's one. Even the prices of wheat have skyrocketed in the last couple of days. More importantly, why I say Biden is just talking politics. US and Russia, they have this aerospace cooperation. With the recent sanctions slammed on Russia, look at what the aerospace authorities in Russia are saying. So, men, think before you leave, or look before you leave. We have cooperation of the International Space Services, ISS. He said that the control of the orbit is in Russia. With these sanctions, you will leave these things at nobody's control. And he said that it's a 5 million ton stuff. And he said when they deorbit it, they won't fall down on Russia.
So this is definitely going to backfire, isn't it?
Certainly.
There's going to be impact on both sides here, all right? That's what is glaring. No, but I'm concerned about the rest of the world. You know, how are we likely to see an implication on the global economy, you know, by extension? I mean, aside Europe and Russia, the US.
Especially when it comes to oil.
Exactly. So
Sure.
us here, over here.
The oil is, as of yesterday, the Brent is about $105 per barrel. And you know what that means? When the crude price goes up, because we don't refine here, the refined one equally goes up.
But shouldn't that be an eye-opener for Nigeria?
We don't learn most from these things. And particularly, you know, these are the two big elephants talking. So we are just the environment that will suffer. You know, because of all these factors, that's why I'm saying this will not be long. There must be a diplomatic solution. These superpowers must come to. They must agree that, okay, well, now already 2 republics are independent. So the country is divided, so they can't join NATO. That's just it.
Well, I hope that we get over this because honestly, it's not looking good at all.
It's not at all, because right now we've actually
Particularly
seen
for
we've seen a drop.
our citizens there, you know.
We've seen the drop in
There
the
are so many,
currency already, so.
so many odds against them.
True.
And the 12,000 are actually the Nigerians, you know, we actually know.
No,
of,
sure.
Those that are, you know, registered and.
Yeah, and quite a number actually
Yeah,
that
no,
are there that
exactly.
are not, you know,
That- yeah,
recognized
that-
by the embassy.
exactly,
And so,
so-
for
Are
those
you
ones, what
suggesting that we have irregular migrants who are Nigerians
yes, we
living in this
do.
water country?
happens? We have them in virtually every country. Well, quite interesting. Let's take a look at other stories now. Now, directly closely related is the one about, you know, fuel price, you know, likely to increase as marketers kick against 5 million naira shipment charge. What does this, you know, mean for us at this period, I mean, this moment in time when we are talking about, you know, dirty fuel already has, you know, battered the economy so hard?
Officially, there won't be oil price increase. Officially. You understand? Why I'm saying this is You know, already there is environment, there is a provision, a bill from the president to the National Assembly requesting for 2.5 trillion naira to augment subsidy payments for 2022. So what that means is the NNPC, as has been the case in the last couple of years, will be the sole importer of the refined oil. And it will continue to sell at the official price of 165. So I don't know where this panic is coming from. NNPC is the sole importer of the refined oil. And the federal government has budgeted 3 trillion as under recovery, as they call it. So as far as we're concerned, up to December this year, oil will be sold at the official price. So I don't know why the marketers are jittery. Maybe the queues, particularly in Abuja, may not be unrelated to the threats by the NAMS that they will block all the major highways on Monday.
Just like what we're saying, what's the correlation of this with the fuel subsidy removal? You know, because I was saying something earlier, and he talked about just shortly after they threatened to remove fuel subsidy and then moved the removal. You know, we're seeing issues with fuel, with scarcity, bad fuel, and a whole lot of things, you know, going on when it comes to petrol.
I think that is a coincidence. I don't want to join the conspiracy theorists bandwagon. It is clear subsidy will not be removed as far as Buhari's administration is concerned. They wanted to remove it by June. That's why they made the provision of 5 billion, 400 and something billion naira as subsidy payment. But with all the political, you remember the coups across the countries, our neighbors, politics, well, it's not an election year. The APC wants to retain power. And they believe that by removing subsidy, what we had during the answers will be a tip of the iceberg. So all this forced them to renege. And now they even made provision for additional 2.5 trillion for subsidy.
So it's merely a coincidence.
I think it's the ethanol contaminated fuel is a coincidence.
Because you know, one will say, I mean, we are already paying this high for fuel. We should just remove the subsidy, you know, already. Because what's the difference, really? If you look at the difficulty that Nigerians have to now face to get this fuel, and if you go to black marketers, how much they sell as compared to what, you know, ideally it should sell for, you would see that it's almost like we're already feeling the brunt, you know, of, you know, the removal of the subsidy.
Yes, and when you light on it, you know, when these queues return to the major cities, the black marketers, you know, were happy that yes, Baba has remembered them, you know, and now, you know, what if it. But on a serious note, there is no direct correlation, Mr. Iwe, between the bad fuel imports and what have you. Yes, we understand that what happened. Some about 3 cargoes, millions of fuel has to be disengaged. Even where they are in the filling station, they have to stop selling. I know they have to fill that gap. So it is that small supply hitch created.
Yeah, but you know, those who are promoting this conspiracy, you know, kind of feel like the whole dirty fuel thing is a smokescreen, and that maybe it's just part of a strategy to maybe distort, you know, disrupt the sector. First of all, when you disrupt the sector, it's easier to, you know, make the changes that you want.
Yeah, but do you know why I don't believe this theory? It is because of an election year. APC suspended the implementation of the PIA for political reasons. Because when the PIA is fully in place, it simply means that you have to buy fuel at least 325, 330. Understand? And it's an election, and you don't want to anger Nigerians again. So that is it. So I don't think this is not even the time moment. What Buhari simply did, they postponed the thing by 18 months. He postponed the doomsday. Whoever becomes president, they will have to grapple with that. You understand? So I don't think that all this conspiracy that it is the testing. No, mark you, there is 3 trillion naira for subsidy. It was just a problem that even the NNPC and other authorities didn't envisage.
Well, you also have some marketers, saying the NNPC actually okayed the bad fuel.
It was a regulatory hitch. There are, before the shipment, there are regulators that check it. And mind you, there are international firms. When something arrived here, the something. So I don't think maybe when the fuel was coming, these international firms, will soil their reputation to allow that bad fuel into the country. So that is it. It was, even the NNPC, like Mele Kyari repeatedly said, they never envisaged this. Understand?
Well, as they say, 99 days for the thief, 1 day for the owner. Is it possible that it's actually been happening for a really long time and we just caught wind of it?
It's just a word. Well, I mean, these are just, possibilities that we're just throwing out.
No, anything in Nigeria,
Yeah.
Anything is possible.
All right, now let's take a look at some political stories. One of the story here on The Guardian talks about, how some APC stakeholders are outraged over the decision to select Abdullahi Adamu as party chair and the whole conversation about zoning. We are seeing that Nasser El-Rufai is also talking about, discussions ongoing as to zoning the presidency to the south. Already some people have made conclusions that, arising from the meeting between the governors and the president, that decision has been arrived at already. So what do we know so far?
Yeah, I think based on the stories we learned that the former governor of Nasser Abdullah Adamu has been endorsed by the president. That's a good omen for the APC. You understand? It's a good omen for the APC. Yes, despite his age. So after all that, he's not going to run a marathon or what if you. Other candidates, like we say, will be outraged. But for the president to come out and make he did the same thing during Oshimole. He endorsed Oshimole. He said, okay, all other party positions, you go and APC as it is now needs somebody of Abdullah Adamu statue, intellect, age, and experience. He was NPN state chairman, the All Plateau State, as far back as 1978. He was a minister, the 2 times governor, or senator. And intellectually, he's a colossus. So he has all the political experience, to manage the confusion in APC. You understand? And unlike Oshimole, for instance, who brought that gung-hu type of Adamu, it's not like that. And you need the age, because there are you reach certain stage in life that you can tell truth to whoever is concerned. Yes, he's a politician, but he can tell the president his mind. Understand? Unlike other contestants who are below 60 and what if you, they will remain yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir, and what if you. And this gives us, it's a point at where the APC is going in terms of its presidential candidate. I think they will make it open, like PDP is going.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now, we'll take a look at, some clips from the recently held roundtable by 21 and 21st Century Chronicle. And then when we come back, we'll just take some, takeaways from that roundtable. Please take a look.
Speaking on the theme, Armed Forces and the War Against Insecurity in Nigeria, guest speaker General Leo Irabo, Nigeria's Chief of Defense Staff, highlights some of the major impediments undermining current efforts to defeat armed groups terrorizing the country.
Over-reliance on important military wares. This also has been part of the challenge, and that's the reason why I believe that we need to develop our military industrial complex to be able to change the scenario. Why do we need to, at every point in time, depend on external actors to be able to get the wherewithal that we need to be able to bring a change within our environment?
The discussants, former Director Defense Information Major General Chris Olukolade and Dr. Mero Mandara, give perspectives as they identify the other gaps in the fight against insecurity.
We find that intelligence that will be available to enhance both military operations and security operations generally may not be forthcoming as it ought to be. I narrate it as if it's a situation where rivalry.
What we need to do is strategic use of resources. We all know what I mean. Resources are inappropriately used or worse still stolen.
Emir of Suleja Muhammad Awal Ibrahim, the convener Mahmoud Jega, and other participants also speak.
We have to know and perfect our information gathering systems so that we can then feed the various security agents and to ensure action. And I'm also worried about the endemic level of corruption in this country.
And we who say we are chronicling the 21st century, if the country falls apart due to insurgency or insecurity, we will not be able to chronicle not just 21st century but anything at all. So that is the main motivation. Although we are only a year old, but we thought we must really give something back to our community.
Unfortunately, we've been reacting to the security situation. We haven't been able to take a proactive position on them, and so we react when we see them. What baffles me most is the emergence of the so-called bandits.
The major takeaway is that we've had some significant improvement in the battle against insecurity, but we are not there yet. And that we should continue to work hard.
I did raise a question about the national security policy, whether we have one or not, but you heard from the CDS, because that is important. The national security is important because we can't have a national security strategy without a clearly defined national security policy.
While Professor Jibrin Ibrahim discussed reducing tension as election year approaches, Dan Agbese discussed media and peace building in Nigeria. Shafiu Suleiman, Trust TV News, Abuja.
Well, there you have it, from the 21st Century Chronicle roundtable recently held. I think the debut, as a matter of fact. Yeah. Now let's get highlights of that event. Of course, there's no better person to talk about that. So just give us a sense of the takeaways from that roundtable.
Yeah, I think if you look at from the army of speakers and discussants that gathered there, the theme up to now is about security. Still a challenge. So, these are election year. Even in normal times, when election approaches, tensions, communal, political, and what have you. And now we have some Boko Haram banditry and what have you. So that was the main essence of the roundtable, that the Chief of Defense Staff is there, who will give the military background. He highlighted some of the successes recorded as well as the challenges. A former spokesperson with Defense Information, General Olukolade, is there. He's from the outside and he'll highlight it. And more importantly, rivalry between the agencies is causing a lot of havoc. Dr. Meramandero talked about resources. And like Olukolade said, he said the military has been left unfunded for long. We thought that we can only fund the military when we have war. German, a general in Germany yesterday was talking about it with the Russian invasion of Ukraine. He said that the German soldiers are not well trained, so we have to prepare for it. Mandela spoke about resources. So yes, look at the resources have been in the last 10 years or more. Budget has the largest chunk of our resources, but without much to show for it. Complaints everywhere, you understand? So judicial use of resources, as well as those who vote these resources, should ensure that. Then if you look at the second segment, we're talking about elections. Professor Jibo, is an activist. Professor Kuna is a special assistant to INEC chairman. He highlighted most of these issues. Mr. Danak basically talked about the media. We are the punching back by both the military, the politicians, and what have you. But the fact remains that we are the voice. We are the aperture through which people get information. And therefore, we have to be professional and responsible.
In terms of, intelligence, how much of role can the media play in terms of providing, information to our security, and, whether or not the synergy that we have, at the moment is efficient, to help in that respect?
The military, like the CDS said, play a key role in this. And as a partner, not as a dumping ground, the stakeholders must take media into cognizance. You understand? Like Professor Kuna and Professor Jido Ofose, he discussed one of the papers. He said, the media should support the country, not the government in power. Country first. When you support the country, then a good leader may come, he may go. A bad leader will come. But if you personalize things instead of institutionalizing things, you understand, we have problem. A rogue will become a president, and he will force everybody to support his cause, no matter how bad it is for the country. So the media should, national interest is not the interest of the people in power. It is the interest, overall interest of the country as a whole. So the media has to do that. And like Mr. Abese said, that fear, no. We are the punching back. Everything media. We don't manufacture stories. We report them.
Yeah, but even though these days it's becoming more difficult to really, reconcile the fact that there's this trend of fake news and also, professional journalism. So,
social media. Any man with a 5,000 Android with 15 naira data, assume that he's a journalist. For instance, maybe for a layman, take this newspaper, maybe it's about 40 or 64 pages. In the newsroom, you must have had hundreds of stories that the editors at all the layers have to sift through, select the best and present them. But unlike the social media, mainstream media, whatever you shouldn't be accused of peddling fake news. With the emergence of social media, the politicians and all other stakeholders will know the value of the media. They know what editors go through. You will receive you are sitting in the newsroom, a phone call. That so thing is happening in so place. You can't just slam it or come to me, Master, are you welcome? Yeah, I say so. No. there are checks. If, for instance, the information is given even by two credible people, you have to corroborate by getting another independent source to corroborate what is happening. If you cannot send your reporter there practically. So now, fake news is not from the media. It's from the rabble-rouser. So we shouldn't be accused of peddling fake news. And most of these fake news come from the politicians. They turn and be accusing the media.
Well, this, dialogue is actually a good thing because even Daily Trust had their dialogue sometime, early this year. Yeah. We hope to see more of this because as the media, we can't, go to the war front and, pick up arms and everything. So this is, us doing our own due diligence and trying to find ways of securing our nation. So I actually commend 21st Century.
Thank you very much.
We hope to see more of these discussions.
Like I said the other time, we are not doing awards. We are doing dialogue, investing money to to cross-fertilize ideas, just like Trust is doing.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining Daybreak this morning and sharing your perspectives with us.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
But in a situation where you find that a look at the same,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
I have said that.